I'm a manager and I have an attitude problem on my team. Welcome to the club. She works hard, but she's incredibly inefficient, and we have tried so many avenues to help her become less, quote unquote, overwhelmed. Recently, her responses have been disrespectful. How do you ask someone if they've checked out without specifically asking that question? I'm afraid she will get defensive and we won't get an answer. First of all, who cares if she's checked out? She sucks. So don't ask why she's checked out. What I would do is say, hey, Betty, or whatever her name is, here's my expectation. Here is what this job requires. Here are the metrics for your success. Keep them clean, keep them simple, keep it very straightforward. And then you say, I need you to meet these expectations. Expectations include attitude, right? You want to be respectful. You want to be a great team player. You want to have a winning mindset. You want to be present. You also want to get the work done. So here's what you need to do in this job. Here's what success looks like. You got to lay out what success looks like. Success is when you complete this project. Success is making your teammates feel valued. Success is getting the KPI reports done on time, whatever it is. Then you say, Betty, this is what your job is, and this is the job. There's no getting around the job. There isn't a version of this job. This is the job. And my expectation is that you are infinitely capable and completely equipped to crush this job. But the decision on if you're going to do that or not is yours. If she rises to the occasion, meets the expectations, hits the KPIs, lives up to the values you want, awesome, you guys go on your way. My gut is she's not going to, and then you need to start the performance plan process, which is to say, hey, Betty, you didn't do this, you didn't deliver this expectation. You've got to be very specific. I think people, at least at Barstool and in my career, people tend to be kind of squirrely with bad feedback. You've got to be like extremely, extremely precise. Today you did this, today this happened in the meeting. This is why this didn't meet the expectations that you set out for them. This is the consequence of those actions. You need to get really, really, really specific with her about where and when and how she's falling down. And then ultimately, I think you need to move this person out of your team, if not out of your company outright. And you need to put in the work to run the gauntlet, to support her in trying to be her best self and hitting the gauntlet, and then in taking the right action in a way that's very clear, very fair, very straightforward, and very consistent about getting her out the door. All right, so that's it for Betty. Second question. I've been at a startup for 5 years. We're doing well enough, and I continue to crush it, okay. But I've put off a raise to help the company during a tough time last year. What is the best way to approach this topic and retroactively receive or ask for a raise that I didn't obtain the year before? Okay, couple thoughts on this one. One is like, you can never go back in time, and there's no, you can never go back in time and say like, remember when I didn't get a raise? I'd like last year's raise and this year's raise. I think it just sounds bad. It kind of feels petty. If you're generous enough to give up your raise to help the company, then own that decision. You gave up your raise to help the company. Now that said, if the company's doing better, you go into this annual review cycle and you're like, hey, I'd like to understand what my raise looks like. I was really happy to give up my raise last year to help the company, but I want to see myself progress financially. I want to progress my career, and I'm eager to have a conversation about how this company is going to invest in me and what your thoughts are on that. One way to get a raise if the company doesn't have a lot of cash is to get equity. So you could ask for equity. The second thing you might want to do is to say, hey, how does this raise compare with standard raises at the company? So that you get a sense of like, hey, maybe the raise doesn't equal what last year's amount would have been and this year's amount, but you know that this is the best raise you could possibly get at the company, and you're doing well compared to your peer set. That shouldn't matter so much, but I think contextually that sometimes helps people. So that's how I would approach that. 3. I love this guy. This is the Australian guy in my DMs all the time. Okay, I'm the general manager of this golf course. So this guy sends me this DM with a picture of a golf course that looks like it's like an alligator swamp. It's basically like water everywhere. I'm the general manager of this golf course where we flooded from the river adjacent 3 times now in 3 consecutive weekends. Note to self, this golf course doesn't seem to be optimally situated. Do you have any advice on how to deal with staff and keeping them engaged when there's an interruption in the normal flow of work? Also, how do I best reward the workers who chip in so much during the cleanup? I think this is a really great question, actually. So shit happens. Like, shit happens in your life, shit happens in your family, shit happens at work, shit happens in the environment. I mean, the environment is basically going to like hell in a handbasket. So I would imagine that if you flooded 3 times in 3 weeks, there's a lot of flooding in your future. I think the best thing to do when work is interrupted or something deviates from the norm, I don't know, this could be me and you could totally disregard it, is to just get people busy. So if the golf course can't be open and functioning because of the flooding, then have people do projects that help with the flooding or help communicate to the members of the golf course or your constituents of what's happening and why. Like, put people to work. I think when people are busy, they're clear on what they're supposed to work on and they're empowered to do it. People generally tend to be like pretty happy and well situated. So I would, instead of having people lolling around or not getting the hours that they thought they were going to get this weekend, find jobs for people to do. And then the second thing is do a team dinner. Send a personal note to everyone. Get them t-shirts, like give them some type of gift. I think it's great to bring everyone together and show them your appreciation. I also think a handwritten note goes so far in terms of making people feel good and feel appreciated. You might also want to create something funny like the flood awards, where every time there's a flood, you give out, you have an awards ceremony for who worked the hardest or whose feet got most wet or who fell in the pond or whatever it may be. Like, you could make something funny that gives people something to look forward to in a really hard time.